Hello and welcome to NC Continental Prime and News Central Television. I am Genga Aborowa, and these are the headlines at this hour. 17 soldiers die in a helicopter crash in Nairobi, Kenya. Algerian Prime Minister resigns. A Ugandan president declares Friday public holiday of prayers for health workers and families affected by COVID-19. We'll bring you all the details shortly. We begin the news in the Republic of South Africa, where ANC Secretary-General Ace Magashule went to battle with his own party today in his case as he appeared in the High Court in Johannesburg. The court heard a request by another suspended ANC member to join the case. The application was dismissed. Magashule is challenging Section 25, subsection 7 of the ANC's constitution, which calls on members of the party implicated in serious crime to step aside from party roles. Magashule's lawyers argued that the section is unconstitutional. Joining us now to unpack this further is South African journalist and editor Diane Hawker. Hi, good evening, Diane. Thanks for joining us on NC Continental Prime.
Good evening, Benga, and good evening to the viewers as well.
So it took a bit of time before the court got into the main aspects of the case. Can you tell us a bit about what happened this morning?
Yes, absolutely. The beginning portion of the proceedings were actually taken up by these other applications brought by, I suppose we could call them friends of Magashule. They are members of what has become known in South Africa as the RET group of the ANC, and that's the Radical Economic Transformation group within the ANC. Many of these people have been supporters of Ace Magashule at his criminal case, and now they appeared in court, their lawyers appeared in court to argue on their behalf that they should be admitted in the application itself. Part of what they were saying was that the application shouldn't have been brought, or that the ANC shouldn't have actually suspended Magashule in the first place. And they were actually questioning the standing of ANC Deputy Secretary General Jesse Duarte to actually have signed that affidavit that actually, or that order that actually resulted in Magashule's suspension. They were saying that since Magashule is the Secretary General, that the Deputy Secretary General cannot take action against essentially her superior. However, the bench, the full bench of High Court judges, they obviously ruled on this and they dismissed this application, saying that what's being raised in this matter is not an urgent aspect. And they actually said that they're dismissing this with cost, which actually means that these members will have to pay some of the legal costs in this instance. But they have indicated that they might come back to the court to argue this point further, because they do feel that there's a reason that they should be involved. Amongst the people there was a gentleman by the name of Nkosana Shezi, as well as Matumwa Mawere. And both of these people are members of the ANC. One of them has also had to step aside from a position in the party. And so you can see that the ramifications of this case have now started to extend beyond Magashule and the ANC to also involve other members of the party. Benga.
Now, still talking about developments regarding Ace Magashule's case, his lawyers argued today in the High Court in Johannesburg that the party's constitution goes against the country's constitution. Tell us more about this.
Yes, this is really the main crux of Magashule's argument in this case. The constitution of the ANC was amended. This particular section 25.7, was something that was amended in the party's constitution after a resolution at one of their main gatherings. And the resolution was essentially that if any ANC member finds themselves facing criminal charges, they should step aside from their position as an ANC member until such time as that those charges have been finalized penalized. But what Magashule is arguing is that this actually goes against the principle of being innocent until proven guilty by a court of law. And what he's saying is, why should members of the party be requested to step aside when the courts are still going to make a final determination about whether they're guilty or innocent? And he's saying that, it's putting people like him in a difficult position, but also he's outright calling it a breach of the South African national constitution, which also gives an impression that this case is something that could continue all the way until our highest court, regardless of what the outcome is, because the Constitutional Court here in South Africa is the last court of instance when it comes to matters that have to do with the constitutional or challenges relating to aspects of the Constitution.
Now, the ANC was late in submitting some of its court papers. How did the court deal with that?
Yes, this was actually one of the sort of earlier arguments that were dealt with early in the day. Quite a serious issue because, the court has certain timelines that it deals with. And since this is an urgent application, the ANC had a short period of time to submit their court papers. But at the same time, when matters are being dealt with on an urgent basis, the expectation is that the parties will stick to that deadline because it's the request from the applicants is that this case must be dealt with urgently. And we heard Magashule's lawyers arguing that the ANC shouldn't be allowed to kind of get away with submitting their papers late. They had to do a condonation application, so basically to request the court's permission to have submitted these papers late. And Magashule's lawyers were saying that the ANC hasn't adequately explained why they submitted the papers late, that they had sufficient time in their view, and that the court should essentially penalize them for that. Of course, the case is still ongoing. It will continue tomorrow, so we still have to see whether that they will be penalized or whether the court will submit the arguments made by the ANC on that aspect.
Thank you very much, Diana. Always a pleasure talking to you. We do appreciate your insights on the subject. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now to the east of the continent, where the African Union Election Observer Mission to Ethiopia has described Monday's poll as credible and peaceful. The mission says it observed preparations for the elections as well as the voting process in Addis Ababa and other parts of the country. The vote counting is still underway. The election was postponed twice, first in August 2020 due to the coronavirus pandemic and again on the 5th of June following security and logistical challenges. Violence and other incidents have led to the election being delayed until September in dozens of constituencies across regional states in Ethiopia. Joining us live this evening on NC Continental Prime is African Affairs expert Dr. David Matsanga, has joined us from NAIROBI to talk about developments in Ethiopia. Good evening, Dr. Matsanga.
Good evening, sir. Thank you very much for hosting me.
Great to have you back. Now, the African Union Observers Mission to Ethiopia to monitor the elections, led by Nigeria's former president, Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, did give a clean bill of health, and the Nobel Prize winning president of Ethiopia, Abiy Ahmed, did say that it's the freest and fairest election in the history of his country. What do you have to say about that? What's your assessment?
First of all, the assessment of every African Union observer team has always been the same. I think the notes or the reports are written by the AU in Addis Ababa. Their wording has never changed. I've never heard of an African Union observer team and a monitoring team giving any African country a bad bill of its elections.
Why do you think this is so, Dr. Matsanga? Are they using African standards, or are they just looking after each other's interests? What do you think the reason is?
Is the type, is the scratch my back situation in politics, is because none of the leaders is able to criticize the current situation. Some of them were past leaders who were also helped to be in office at that time. And that is what has caused the African Union to be called a captured organization. Let me tell you and tell your viewers and the viewers in Nigeria, African Union is a toothless dog. It cannot bite. It has been captured by the French. The French-speaking countries or the French have actually captured the chairperson of African Union, Dr. Mohamed Faki. I have no good words for that gentleman because he's never anywhere. There are so many things in Africa that are going wrong where he should be helping Africa, including elections. I think you remember in Ethiopia. How do you say the elections were free and fair and the most credible when some people in Ethiopia cannot even cough? They cannot cough.
So, Dr. Matsanga, yes. would I be right to say one of the reasons why you've refused to toe the line of the African Union in certifying this election as free and fair is because as we speak, there's still an ongoing conflict in Tigray and elections were not held in several parts of the country. So it undermines the fairness of the election. If you have staggered elections in the country, then you can't really say it was free and fair because it's excluded quite a number of people. Is this your reason, or are there other reasons why you would not give the Ethiopian elections a clean bill of health?
An election, to be free and fair, it must be campaigned for freely. It must. You don't judge election to be free and fair because of the voting on that particular day. I have been an observer of the UN elections, independent observer in East Timor, in Zimbabwe, in Belgrade, Serbia. I've been to so many places observing elections independently. You don't come on the day of the voting because people have come in huge, queues or lining up to 100 miles, and then you say it was free and fair. You must look at the ingredients of a free and fair election. What are they?
Now,
association,
yes.
Assembly, freedom of choice. What did the people of Ethiopia had to choose from? There are some parts of Ethiopia, like as you said, there was not even a campaign. How can you campaign in a place of state of war? I think Obasanjo and his group, Obasanjo has never written a very good report in Africa. Show me one. Show me one. We sent him to South Sudan. He wrote a very bogus report. We sent him to Zimbabwe. He wrote a bogus report. We sent him to DRC Congo. I am always very critical. I'm a great friend of General Obasanjo, but not a great friend of his ideas.
Now, talking about the war situation in Sudan, it's like you rightly said, why would people go to polls if security is not guaranteed? And security should be the priority of every government. There's also a discussion. It's been 60-odd years since a majority of African countries secured independence from colonial powers, and it's often touted that we should look within. There should be African solutions to African problems. Now, there's a crisis in Ethiopia. The African Union recently passed a resolution to form a fact-finding mission to go into Tigray and Ethiopia to find out what is really going on, and then they will deliberate on the next line of action to take in order to return peace to the whole of Ethiopia. The Ethiopian Foreign Ministry has said, look, we are not happy with this line you're towing. It's an internal problem in Ethiopia, and we'll fix it. What do you think, what would you suggest would be a lasting solution to the problems in Tigray? Because the Prime Minister, Abiy Ahmed, said there's no famine in Tigray. The Eritrean troops that were fighting alongside Ethiopian troops in Tigray, some of them are yet to withdraw as they have promised.
First of all, the Tigray issue is very painful because several countries in the East African region, the Horn of Africa, have joined to kill the people of Tigray. Eritrea, Somalia, Ethiopia, they have gone in. That war has sucked in. If you didn't know, from the intelligence that I have, because most of my friends of TPLF and Ethiopia are my friends. We lived together in exile. We have lived together in exile in Britain and many other parts. I want to tell you frankly that they teamed up to kill the people of Tigray. The African Union talks of 66 years of independence. We are still talking of looking for solutions. Africa has got so many troops. They cannot even deploy one standing unit that can even kill one mosquito. Where is it? The only type that I can see is in West Africa, ECOWAS. At least there is some type under SADC. There is some type when they said you can't take out Congo. They went and removed the enemies of Congo. ECOWAS in Gambia.
In Liberia, Gambia, Sierra Leone, yes.
Yes, they have done it. But African Union, as African Union, is useless. It's a toothless dog. Why do you wait until the war in Tigray has, we sounded a lot of noise. We made a lot of alarm that there is a war coming. Nobody cared. Nobody in AU has even, can tell you that they went to their website and told us, stop the war. Why do you wait for the war to begin? Then you say you want to send a fact-finding mission to look for dead bodies, yet you should prevent. We should have a preventive mechanism. We should have a mechanism that prevents wars in Africa, instead of going when people have died, like the people are dying in Tigray. Yes.
Africans should be more proactive, you said.
We are not, let me tell you, we are reactive. We are not proactive.
Okay.
And if you tell any Nigerian that there will be a meeting in London, do you know when he goes for the visa? When the meeting is on Monday, he will try to go on Sunday.
Okay.
To inconvenience the embassy to give him a visa. Yet he knew that the meeting, or any Ugandan, we are not proactive. We are very bad people ourselves.
Okay, I would like to say a very big thank you to you, Dr. David Matsanga, for taking time out to join us on NC Continental Prime this evening. Always a pleasure talking to you. We do appreciate your contribution.
Thank you very much. I'm always on standby as long as Africa is concerned. God bless.
Thank you very much, Dr. David Matsanga there, political affairs specialist, joining us live from Nairobi, Kenya. We now move to West Africa, Nigeria, where new United Nations report estimates that the 12-year conflict in northeast Nigeria has contributed to the deaths of nearly 350,000 people, more than 90% of whom are children. The United Nations Development Programme says that for every person killed directly in the fighting, at least 9 other lives are lost because of the impact of the war. Since the Islamist group Boko Haram launched its first attacks in 2009, close to 2 million people have fled their home states in 3 states of the northeast Nigeria. Facilities, including health centers and schools, have been destroyed or become inaccessible as a result of the war. Now, staying in Nigeria, Nigeria's federal government has reiterated its position that all social media platforms in the country will be registered before they can be allowed to operate. Nigeria's Minister of Information, Culture and Tourism, Lai Mohammed, made this known in the nation's capital, Abuja, as he answered questions on the current Twitter ban at a public hearing to investigate the ban by the nation's parliament. News Central correspondent Amadine Uyi reports.
The public hearing was much anticipated, following lawmakers' condemnation of the suspension of Twitter by Nigeria's federal government. As the session began, lawmakers from Nigeria's House of Representatives put the Minister of Information, Culture and Tourism, Lai Mohammed, on the hot seat as questions and explanations were demanded.
A lot of Nigerians feed their family through usage of Twitter. We are aware that there is serious unemployment in the country right now. And Twitter is a major handle with which people can sell their things.
If I can recall, the last court order was given some months or years back, and Twitter was still on. Why is it that it was because they pulled down the comment of Mr. President that you now came up with this hammer?
My constituents are as unhappy as others in this country, and they have asked me to plead on their behalf with the federal government through you to look at these issues in a reasonable time so that we can resolve it and look at options that could make people function effectively.
I just wonder if in the consideration of that ban, you took into cognizance the coincidence of Mr. President's tweet and Twitter's action and the impression it created on the minds of millions of Nigerians and indeed the entire world.
What effort have you put in place in regulating those agencies in order to enable the unemployed youth in Nigeria to gain jobs through those agencies? Because if certain things are put in place, you will have a checkmate on all these social medias.
We did not ban Twitter. We simply suspended indefinitely the activities of Twitter. This suspension is because Twitter had made its platform the platform of choice for people promoting activities to destabilize Nigeria. That despite persistent calls on Twitter, they refused and made their platform available for separatist groups and people calling for the dismemberment of Nigeria.
The minister also revealed that Nigeria's federal government has resolved to ensure that all social media platforms will be expected to be registered before they can operate in the country.
This was informed by the fact that we realized that many of the OTT social media platforms operating in Nigeria today are not registered in Nigeria. They make billions of naira out of our country. They pay no taxes. They employ nobody.
He also denied claims that the action was taken because President Muhammadu Buhari's tweet was deleted by the social media platform.
We did not suspend the activities of Twitter because they deleted Mr. President's tweet. Not at all. We are very unambiguous on why we suspended Twitter.
In a surprising twist, some other lawmakers threw their weight behind Nigeria's presidency. They say they are fully in support of the regulation of social media.
The media is at war. We can see what's happening on social media. We should please regulate the media. Let's tell ourselves the truth. Nigeria first. Nigeria first.
I want to key in totally that we need to regulate the social media. There is nowhere in the world that everyone leaves the space freely.
From Abuja, Amadin Uyi, News Central Television.
Coming up on NC Continental Prime, Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni has appointed General Wilson Mbadi as the country's new army commander. Bring you details of this story and more after the break. Stay with us. You're welcome back. Now, moving on to East Africa, Uganda's President General Kaguta Museveni has appointed General Wilson Mbadi as the country's new army commander. He was promoted from deputy army commander and was also at one point the president's personal bodyguard. General Peter Elwelu, who has been the commander of the land forces, will be his deputy. The general is famous for having been in command when the military stormed the palace of the king of Rwenzuru in western Uganda in 2016, during which over 80 people died, according to official figures. The president's son, General Mahuzi Kainerugaba, will now be overseeing the land forces. President Museveni has been reorganizing the army over the last several years, where younger officers have increasingly replaced his 1980s bush war comrades in senior positions. The Electoral Commission of Zambia, ECZ, has cancelled 3 parliamentary elections and 1 ward elections for the 12th of August. The commission says the body will be conducting fresh nominations for Mandevu constituency, Lusaka, necessitated by the death of Mrs. Melody Musutu and the resignation of 3 candidates. The commission also notes the process may inconvenience stakeholders, especially political parties, who will be required to do fresh nominations. Now, some sad news now. Kenya's military has confirmed the deaths of several soldiers after a military helicopter crashed during training outside Kenya's capital, Nairobi. This is according to a military statement, but it did not give details of the numbers. Injured soldiers have been airlifted to a military hospital in Nairobi, the statement adds. It is unclear how many soldiers were on board the helicopter, but the local media report says 23. Aircraft accident investigators are at the crash site to establish the cause of the accident, the military says. And to the north of the continent now, Algerian Prime Minister Abdelaziz Djerad resigned on Thursday, paving the way for President Abdelmadjid Tebboune to name a new cabinet. The presidency confirmed Djerad's resignation, noting that the president had accepted his decision. Djerad was appointed as Prime Minister in December 2019 and was tasked with winning back people's trust after months of street protest. His resignation comes 4 months after the president made a partial cabinet reshuffle and signed a decree to dissolve the National People's Assembly, the lower house of parliament. Now to a continued coverage of the COVID-19 pandemic and the continent. Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni has declared Friday a public holiday to pray for the health workers and families affected by coronavirus. The country is facing a second coronavirus wave, prompting President Museveni to reimpose a lockdown earlier this month. Parliament has had to temporarily close for 2 weeks as officials said more than 100 people who work there had tested positive for the illness. Confirmed deaths from the virus have risen tenfold in the last 2 weeks. Less than 2% of people have received at least 1 dose of a coronavirus vaccine. You're watching NC Continental Prime. Still ahead on the news, Special Coordinator for the Middle East Peace Process calls on all sides to refrain from provocations to ease tensions in Gaza. We bring you this story and more after the break. Join us again. The Special Coordinator for the Middle East Peace Process for Wenisland has called on all sides to refrain from provocations and also take steps to reduce tensions in Gaza. This is as there are ongoing discussions to stabilize the situation on the ground and avoid another devastating escalation in the country. He also said that the reporting period witnessed an alarming increase in the level of violence between Israelis and Palestinians, including hostilities between Israel and factions in Gaza at a scale and intensity not seen in years.
All sides to refrain from unilateral steps and provocations, take steps to reduce tensions, and allow these efforts to succeed. Everyone must do their part to facilitate ongoing discussions to stabilize the situation on the ground and avoid another devastating escalation in Gaza. The indiscriminate launching of rockets and mortars towards Israel's civilian population centers from highly populated civilian neighborhoods by Hamas, Palestinian Islamic Jihad and others is prohibited by international humanitarian law, and Palestinian militants must cease this practice immediately. Israeli authorities must also abide by the rules of the international humanitarian law governing armed conflict and take all feasible precautions to spare civilians and civilian objects in the conduct of military activity. I remain deeply troubled by continued Israeli settlement expansions on the occupied West Bank, including East Jerusalem. In particular, I'm concerned by the approval of a plan to expand the Har Homa settlement in East Jerusalem. If implemented, this plan would further consolidate the continuum of illegal settlements separating East Jerusalem from Bethlehem and other Palestinian communities.
In many countries around the world, ex-prisoners find it difficult to fit into the system after being released. And Jamiangi tonight, Abdul Aden takes us to Kenya, where some people have taken it upon themselves to break the stigma and help ex-prisoners become accepted parts of the society.
You know, it's like we are being, we are like a plague, you see. We are like, how can I put it?
No sufficient words to describe the treatment facing ex-prisoners.
No one loves a prisoner, truly, yeah? That's the truth, yeah? So the eye they look at you with, yeah, is not, I can say, is not favorable.
An indication of the surmounting challenges in the criminal justice system in Kenya. Teddy Rogers, an excellent footballing talent of his generation, now free after a near 2 decades of duration behind bars. My quest to find answers on the future and what happens to prisoners once they are freed takes me to deep inside Kenya's Eastlands area in the capital, Nairobi. Eastlands is a place attributed with low income level and a large population. Kiari Mwangi, through his community-based organization, Fariji, Comfort in Swahili, is on a mission to change the fate of ex-convicts for the better. But what has pushed Kiari to this path?
During my days of day-to-day work, I realized many young boys were getting incarcerated, and more so sports personalities. It got me thinking about the ecosystem and what are the factors that made them go to jail. So out of personal initiative, I started to visit Kamiti Maximum Prison, which is located about 28 kilometers east of Nairobi. And in between my visitation, I met many ex-footballers incarcerated.
Behind me is the Nairobi River, but if you look at it, the water is really contaminated. Now, this is one of the slums located in Eastlands. Eastlands is one of the places that here in Kenya is accused of having the highest crime rate. Now, the problem is not about the crime rate, it's about reforming, rehabilitating, and reintegrating those who end up in jails or in prisons or in remand.
As we come out of prison, we are stigmatized. Yeah, we know we are like, you know, the mindset of people outside here about a prisoner, you see, is not kind of, I can say, conducive to us.
Teddy might be 2 years out of prison, but he cherishes the moment Kiari and Fariji came through to comfort them in prisons.
What Kiari is doing in integration and the rehabilitation, it helps people like me who has just came out of prison and they need support. Yeah, they need to get back to their family, to get back to the community.
We have formed a football team. We call it Team X. And our vision is to outreach to the community with the people so that, one, we can play football with them. Two, we can use the opportunity to let the community know that our brothers are back
The bond bred with those behind bars in some of Kenya's largest prisons is now becoming a brotherhood to secure the future of ex-prisoners and their families. Fariji also works with the children of the incarcerated to protect the future. Githinji is one of the actively involved community members and one of the officials of Fariji.
We are trying to incorporate the children of the convicts and the prisoners so that they don't end up in crime themselves.
We understand the dysfunctional families is part of the vulnerable ways where children get to prison. We want to be the anchor. We want to be the comfort, as the name Fariji suggests.
Even as ideological challenges related to religion affects the community, Fariji works with members from different faiths in order to create awareness on the situation of the prisoners. Hassan Abdallah works with the community here to fight the ideological perceptions about the situation of prisoners and ex-convicts.
Whenever someone has been released from prison, people view him as a Muslim, as a Christian. Whether you are Muslim, you are Christian, we want to remove that stigma, that ideology of saying this person is a Muslim, that person is a Christian. So as Fariji, what we've been doing is to remove that stigma.
Fariji now targets female ex-prisoners, even as the women remain fearful of the stigma awaiting them once they come out publicly.
We'd wish to have a conversation with the gender, with women, because they are also women offenders and they're women ex-offenders, and getting back to their societies, to their families.
Whereas the reforming, the rehabilitating and reintegrating of prisoners remains a challenge here in Kenya, all seems not to be lost with efforts such as Fariji Solutions and Kiari Mwangi giving another.
Lekon Onabanjo is standing by for more in the world of business.
Welcome to Business News on NC Continental Prime. I am Lekon Onabanjo. Cameroon plans to tap international markets for the second time in 6 years as the Central African nation seeks resources to finance an expanded budget. The government may sell a 10-year or 12-year euro-dominated bond after a series of investor meetings that commenced on Wednesday. The Central African nation has appointed Citigroup Incorporated, JP Morgan Chase, and Societe Generale SA to manage the sales. The government increased proposed spending in its 2021 budget by 13% to 5.5 trillion CFA francs, which is $10 billion, as it seeks to reduce debt and pay for programs to counter the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. Cameroon raised $750 million at 9.5% in its international debt market debut in 2015. The yield on those bonds maturing in 2025 have dropped 187 basis points this year and we're at 5.06% by 12:30 p.m. London time. The country has made an offer to buy back some of the securities depending on the success of the new offer. Now, South Africa's environmental authorities has rejected an application by car powership to generate electricity at 3 of the nation's ports, dealing a setback to the government's plans to reduce outages that are stifling economic growth. South Africa's government in March picked car powership as a preferred bidder to supply 1,220 megawatts of electricity to offset a shortage. Eskom Holdings, SOC Limited, the state-owned power company at a near monopoly, has subjected the country to intermittent outages for more than a decade, partly because of poor maintenance at its plants. The proposed car powership projects have drawn controversy since the award was announced. Environmental groups filed complaints about the company's plans, while losing bidder DNG Energy Limited brought a court application that threatens the entire program. However, car powership maintained that it has met all necessary requirements and will appeal the Environment Department's decision. Let's take you to Kenya now, where the Kenya Electricity Generating Company, or KenGen as it's called, has announced plans to raise $1.95 billion in an effort to build new stations as well as upgrade existing plants. in a bid to almost double its power output using renewable fuel. The company is planning to add 651 megawatts from underground steam in the next 5 years. The company says that most of the funds will be sought from development financiers, and the company plans to build 4 new 140 megawatts steam power plants each, with stem wells having already been drilled at 2 of the planned facilities. Furthermore, the company also plans to upgrade some projects to add 66 megawatts and to deliver another 25 megawatts from Wellhead's mobile generating plant at the Eburu field. KenGen is able to generate 1,803 megawatts of Kenya's total installed capacity of 2,892 megawatts. Out of that, 705.5 megawatts is geothermal energy produced by the company. KenGen has a total installed generation capacity of 1,818 megawatts, comprising hydro, which is 826 megawatts, geothermal, 713 megawatts, thermal, 254 megawatts, and wind, 26 megawatts. Now, Zambian inflation has accelerated to a near 19-year high in June as the cost of meat, fish, and chicken pushed up food prices. Consumer prices rose 24.6% from a year earlier compared to 23.2% in May, according to Zambia's interim statistician general, Mulenga Musepa. Costs increased 1.3% in June, and annual food inflation quickened to a record 31.2% in the month from 28.5% a month earlier. The country's currency, which has lost more than 19% of its value against the dollar in the past 1 year, also helped fuel inflation. The central bank governor, Christopher Mvunga, said last month that the Monetary Policy Committee may tighten its stance further if the rate doesn't come down. And that's business news on NC Continental Prime. Many thanks for watching. Over now to Benga for the rest of the news. I am Likon Onobanjo.
Now, with the Olympics in Tokyo now just a month away, Somalia is set to send its first female taekwondo athlete to the Games in Japan. No athlete representing Somalia has ever won a medal at the Olympics, but 20-year-old Munira Wasame is a taekwondo athlete representing Somalia and was born in Britain after her parents fled violence in Somalia. According to the Somali Olympics Committee, at least 6 athletes will represent the country in Tokyo in 3 categories: taekwondo, boxing and track and field. For the rest of sports, Udoka Unjoku joins me now.
Thank you very much, Benga. And for the rest, we'll talk about DR Congo's former Interim Confederation of African Football President, Constant Omari, who has been suspended from football for 1 year by FIFA for breaking its ethics code. Now, the former FIFA Council member was adjudged to have received benefits from the Lagerd during negotiations between the French media company and CAF, which resulted to insignificant financial damage to the latter. Now, CAF's one-time vice president is said to have received just over 66,000 euros, which football's world governing body has instructed he pays as a fine as part of his sanction. Now, Omari, who recently left his role as DR Congo's Football Federation president after a 16-year reign, entered into a plea bargain arrangement with FIFA. And the Congolese ban formally started on the 18th of June. Moving over to Kenya now, the main action of the World Rally Championship Safari Rally is set to kick off later today from the Kenyan Wildlife Services headquarters in Naivasha. Earlier today, top WRC drivers set the fastest times on the 4.8-kilometer super spectator stage at the Kasarani stage of where Sebastian Ogier and Julian Ingracia in a Toyota Yaris R1 car was quickest with a time of 3 minutes 21.5 seconds. He was followed closely by his teammates Carl Rovanpera and Jean Houtelin in 3 minutes 21.8 seconds. Kenya's Karan Patel, navigated by Tosef Khan, were the best placed local crews in 13th place after clocking 3 minutes 42.6 seconds driving a Ford Fiesta. All the top 12 places were filled by foreign drivers. Now, Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta flagged off the rally from the Kenyatta International Convention Center. Sports Cabinet Secretary Amina Mohammed, FIA President Jean Todt, and Phineas Kimati, the CEO of the WRC's Safari Rally, were all present. He's talking about car racing now. Lewis Hamilton says he has started negotiations with Mercedes over a new contract to stay with the team beyond this season. Now, the 7-time champion signed only a year deal last winter, but has indicated several times that he is keen to race on. Hamilton also indicated he will be happy for his teammate Valtteri Bottas, who is out of contract this season, to stay. But team boss Toto Wolff has yet to decide whether to keep Bottas or replace him with Williams driver George Russell. And Hamilton fell to 12 points behind title rival Max Verstappen in the championship after finishing second to the Red Bull driver in France, and said he was expecting another close battle at this weekend's Styrian Grand Prix at Austria's Red Bull Ring. Moving over to the Olympics now, two-time defending champion Andy Murray has been selected for Great Britain's tennis team at the Tokyo 2020 Olympics. The 34-year-old will play in the men's singles alongside Dan Evans and team up with Joe Salisbury in the doubles. Now, the games are postponed in 2020 because of the pandemic, take place in Japan's capital from the 23rd of July to the 8th of August. Andy Murray has been finding his way at the top level after hip and groin injuries, and the two-time Wimbledon champion is set to play a singles game at the All England Club next week for the first time since 2017. Now, the former world number one, now ranked 119, is the only tennis player to win singles gold at consecutive Olympics. And lastly, US Open champion Dominic Thiem has pulled out of next week's Wimbledon with a wrist injury that he says will sideline him for several weeks. 27-year-old Austrian retired from his match against Adrian Manarino in Mallorca after hurting his wrist while hitting a forehand. World number 5, Thiem, will have to wear a wrist splint for 5 weeks. He was due to be seeded fourth at the Wimbledon, which starts on Monday and runs until the 11th of July. And the two-time French Open finalist lost in the first round in Paris this year and had previously taken a break from the tour to reset after the physical and emotional impact of winning his first Grand Slam in New York in September. Now, the Wimbledon men's draw is also missing 20-time Grand Slam champion Rafael Nadal, who pulled out of the grass court Grand Slam to recuperate after a long clay court season. That's it on sports updates on NC Continental Prime. I am Udoka Njoku. I head back to Benga for the rest of the news.
Thank you, Udoka. On entertainment, Diamond Platnumz will be featured in the first ever African reality television show on Netflix. The reality series, called Young, Famous and African, will feature Pan-African superstars such as Diamond Platnumz from Tanzania, Annie Macaulay Dibia from Nigeria, Swanky Jerry from Nigeria, South African superstars Nadia Nakai, Kayi Mbao, Andile Nkube and Naked DJ, alongside all the entertainment heavyweights on the continent. News Central's Sam Dandy will give us all the entertainment stories now.
Thank you very much. And now to entertainment news. Now we start off in the Gold Coast, where Stone Boy has taken to social media to tackle the Ghana Music Rights Association. Now the multiple award-winning Afro dancehall star joined the conversation about the association's unwillingness to adopt new technologies that would bring transparency in their dealings. A lot of Ghanaians directly attacked the body at the just concluded Musicians Union of Ghana Summit, being that the issues of music royalties still remains a big subject. Now, it's no secret these musicians have expressed on countless occasions their inability to make money off the royalty system due to the backward technology implemented by the association. Music royalties are compensatory payments received by the right holders, songwriters, composers, recording artists, and their respective representatives in exchange for the licensed use of their music. Now, while the COVID-19 pandemic has further negatively affected the sector, musicians have found it harder to make money due to the cancelled shows and concerts. But sensational Ghanaian vocalist Ms. V aired her thoughts that although the ban on concerts is affecting showbiz, it will be ill-advised for entertainers to force the hand of government. The star, saddened by the reality, stated the importance of the safety of lives, saying we can't put money over lives. Now, if you recall, President Akufo-Addo banned music concerts to prevent the spread of coronavirus over a year ago. And now to East Africa, where Kenyan singer Kevin Bahati and his wife Diana are currently in Tanzania to shoot a music video for his collaboration with Rayvanny. Now, the singer kicked off his stay in Tanzania with a visit to Rayvanny's record label, Next Level Music, and took to social media to express his amazement. Now, he said, "Trust me, at Rayvanny has the best record label studios in East Africa." Now, Rivani has indeed done well for himself. The BET award-winning artist, who is signed to Diamond Platinum's WCB label, founded his own record label, Next Level Music, this year. Rivani teamed up with Bahati for song number 2, titled Kiss, on his 10-track album, Love Like This, which has topped charts since its debut. And finally, Nigeria. Badamasi director Obi Emeloye has announced the latest production, an action thriller titled Blackmail. Now, Emeloye recently shared a teaser poster of the forthcoming project featuring star actor O.C. Ukeje. Filmed last year in London, Blackmail follows the story of Chinda, a renowned London actor who gets entangled in a sextortion case. Now, the film will reportedly address issues surrounding data protection and cybersecurity in an increasingly internet-reliant world. Now, it is unclear if the actor will take the lead role, but we're setting that UKJ is going to be part of the film. Now, news of Emeloye's new production comes just weeks after he premiered his biopic on former Nigerian head of state Ibrahim Babangida in London on June 12th. Well, that's our entertainment news. I am Sam Dandy.
Wondering whether to take an umbrella out tomorrow or not, News Central's weather desk has the updates. That's all on the news at this hour, but before we go, let's remind you of the top stories at this hour. 17 soldiers die in a helicopter crash in Nairobi, Kenya. Algerian Prime Minister resigns. We also told you that the Ugandan president declares Friday public holiday of prayers for health workers and families affected by COVID-19. Remember to follow us on social media with News Central TV. You can download our mobile app on App Store and Play Store. You can also watch News Central live in Star Times, Channel 274, AVO TV, Channel 23, Vision TV 247, Free TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Benga Aboroa.